Hey, you guys are on early. What happened? Oh, I think oh. Hey.
Hello.
Why is it recording?
Okay, are we ready? Kevin, can you hear me? Do you want to say something? Kevin. You're not coming through, Kevin.
You have to unmute, Kevin.
Oh, Kevin.
What? Okay, you're all good. Okay,
Okay.
audio's working.
Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order at 7:01. Do we have any delegations tonight there, Cynthia? No delegations, fine. Declaration of financial interest, statement of closures? None? Review of the agenda. I'm assuming everyone's reviewed it. Any questions on the agenda? Cynthia, you have an addition later, right?
Yeah, so if you get a mover and a seconder, then I can add the addition during the discussion.
Okay.
I move that the agenda be adopted as presented.
And seconded by Councillor Crowell. You're taking minutes, Cynthia?
No, it'll be
Or just-
recorded, so she'll just do it off the recording.
Okay.
Yep.
Review the minutes of the last, well, we have 1, 2, 3 meetings, I believe.
Sorry, Councillor, Mr. Chair, if we could just open for discussion and then vote on the,
Oh,
and I'll
right.
just do the agenda.
Any discussion on the agenda? Cynthia?
If I could add before the in-camera session, so 8C will be a COVID update, and then the in-camera session will be 8D.
Okay. Anything from anyone else? Can I have a motion? Oh, we don't need a motion. I have a vote to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor? Review of minutes, and I think we have 3 meetings to. Do we have to do these individually, or can we do them all together?
They will be adopted, or some of them have been adopted at council, and the others will be adopted at the next council meeting. So unless there's any issues with the minutes or corrections, then they should be good.
Any concern? Can I have a motion to accept the minutes of these 3-minute meetings from the floor?
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
And do we have
I'll
a seconder?
second.
Councillor McDonald, any discussion? Okay, so do we vote to accept these minutes?
So that's fine. We'll move them forward to council meeting.
Okay. Visions and values. Carry on. And strategic plan. I'm missing something here. Council priorities.
Mr. Chair, I took those off because they were not your council priorities. They were the previous council priorities.
Okay.
So we'll put them back on once you guys have set your priorities for this council.
Okay. Okay, director's report, Miss White.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Kate is home sick today, but I will give you a quick director's report. Basically, year end. Mic drop. No, so they're prepping for year end, which will close out at the beginning of February, close out our 2021 accounts, and then move right into audit prep. So that's what the staff are going to be busy on for the next few weeks, as well as prepping for not a whole lot of prep to be done, but there may be some work that needs to be done as they get ready for the Board of Appeal for the assessments. And then we'll be moving into a spring tax sale. So lots of work to be done.
You're with Cynthia in her office.
Sorry, man. So that was all for the director's report, Mr. Chair, and the mayor's just joined me in my office.
Okay, thank you. Correspondence. I believe there is some correspondence tonight.
Can we go back to accounts paid list?
Certainly.
Check number 38506, Bobcat tires. I thought we just purchased new Bobcats. Why are we getting so many tires for them?
Okay, so until we get Miss White back.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we lease the Bobcats. And I would have to ask, I'd have to ask the director about that specifically. We don't, we don't buy the Bobcats, we actually just lease the Bobcats. So it might have something to do with part of that lease.
Any further questions for the accounts paid?
your internet connection is unstable.
Who are you talking to?
Me.
Okay, moving on to correspondence. Any correspondence? Ms. White?
So there
I can
was
see.
one correspondence from a community member around an aggressive dog. And so that was addressed to the by the bylaw officer. We haven't had any concerns with regards to that since, but I will get him again to follow up in the new year once he's back to work and out of isolation. But yeah, so it was a large dog. Owner was unable to handle it appropriately, and it was aggressively barking at some folks and I think pulling towards them. And the bylaw officer has informed the person that if he's unable to keep the dog under control on leash, that's still an out of control dog, and further action could be taken.
Okay. License report, Ms. White?
Yeah, you'll see some lottery licenses were processed. And quite a few lottery licenses for the end of the year. Otherwise, not much going on there. Our business license are picking up now. I have a stack of them to sign in my mailbox. So you'll see that coming list of business licenses starting to rev up in the next report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, bylaw policy review and development. Ms. White?
I think we just, we put the rates and fees bylaw under administration, if you wanted to just go to that, Mr. Chair.
Sure. We'll move on to administration. Briefing note rates and fees bylaw. Ms. White?
Thank you. So typically, so I've included a briefing note just to give you a little bit of background about rates and fees. And so typically we review the rates and fees every year to determine if we need to make any changes. In some years we don't, but we often find that there are amendments that can be made to better monetize the services that we provide to the community. So for this year, we dug into it and specifically looked for places where we thought there were things missing or specific areas that were under costed. And so in the past, we've had times where we might just do 10% increase across the board on all municipal rates and fees. Other times where we might just find a department or sections of rates and fees where we want to go and make some increases. But this year what we did is we went right through the whole thing and talked about various places where we thought we're not appropriately capturing the cost of the service. So there's a list here. Ambulance fees. We're looking for ambulance transfer fees to be increased, partly because we want to ensure cost recovery of this service. We did look at other communities. That is one thing we do in the rates when we do the rates and fees is we compare to other communities in the territory. So this increase in services is closer to what you would see in other communities, as well as in particular, we looked at the fact that for non-ambulatory seniors who live in care homes or require transport back from the hospital to their residence, that's not covered by the GNWT. So if we're supporting a transfer back from the hospital to a care facility or home, there's no recovery on those costs. And so we wanted to make sure that we're cost recovering appropriately. Cemetery fees have been adjusted. I did make some changes based on some comments from the senior management team, which I just wanted to touch base on. So seniors don't pay an internment fee. The senior management team wondered if council might be amenable to children, to not being an internment fee for children as well. That, you know, just that can be a hardship and increased burden on families. And we've added a fee for interment for cremation remains in the new columbarium, which is going to be arriving in the spring. Dog licensing fees, a small increase there to address the ongoing and increasing costs of maintaining the shelter. Businesses licensing fees have been adjusted to equalize the cost for resident, commercial, and home occupation businesses. For some reason, well, I know the reasons, previous councils wanted to incentivize people opening brick and mortar businesses rather than having home occupation businesses. I don't know if this is a realistic, I don't think this is produced any more physical businesses in the community, but it does cause a barrier to people opening home occupation businesses by having increased fees. So we did suggest or do recommend that we just have one cost for commercial and home occupation businesses that are opened by residents of Fort Smith.
Are you, excuse me?
Mhm. Yeah.
Are you saying that somebody that has a home occupation spends the same thing as someone in a brick and mortar building for a business license?
They spend more. Someone who has a home occupation business currently pays more for a business license than somebody in brick and mortar building.
Yeah, because that's what we want. We want to get them into the empty lots that are downtown and everything, and to use everything up. We don't want to keep them in their home occupation. We want to get them out. It's just a startup thing for a business from home. It's not to stay there for 50 years. Thanks. So I don't think the prices should be the same.
Okay. That's certainly when you're in discussion on the bylaw for sure. We've adjusted some of the community services fees, tipping fees, solid waste levy, so that we can ensure that we continue to build up our reserve for ongoing maintenance and upgrading of the landfill. We've added a fee for contractors who use our snow dump, and water and sewer fees have been increased because we are looking to get them closer to what we anticipate our market value for water will be, as well as the trucked water rates have been identified as an issue by the auditor in regards to how they've been administered, and the fact that people who live outside of municipal boundaries pay less for water than taxpayers within the municipal boundaries. So you'll see in your copy of the bylaw, the changes are there for your review and discussion. That's all I got.
Any discussions or Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have a couple of questions around some of the fees. So with regards to the $100 per load for the snow dump use, is the intent of this fee to not have contractors use the snow dump? It does seem quite excessive from 0 to 100. And if we want to encourage them to use it as a revenue stream, then I'm suggesting the rate is too high. If we don't want them to use it at all, then the rate's probably pretty good. The other comment I have here, and I've raised this once before, is we're in the process of activating the new facility on the landslide that has the toilets, change rooms, and storage. I do not see any fee for the use of that facility. However, every other recreation facility in the community has a fee attached to it. So my question would be, what is the cost to run that facility annually, and what kind of cost recovery are we going to try and get out of that? And those are my questions for now.
Ms. White,
Thank you.
Thank you. So the snow dump, we were looking for some cost recovery on the snow dump, because what happens with the snow dump is the contractors use the snow dump. And just dump snow wherever they would like to dump snow in the snow dump, because we don't have the resources to have somebody sit there and staff it. And then we end up having to pay a contractor to move snow in the snow dump in order to make enough room for snow removal. Similarly, in the downtown area, in particular, we have contractors who are moving snow out of private businesses and parking lots, and then dumping it into the ditches. And then we pay the contractors to remove that snow at the end of the season when we're trying to get the snow removed for spring freshet. So what we're looking for is an attempt to try and cost recover a bit on that snow dump. Because it is a service that we offer to them that we don't need to offer to anybody. But I'm certainly very open to it being a little bit less if that seems the appropriate. This was just a cost recovery number.
So it's $100 per dump truck of snow is the cost recovery rate? That seems
It
awful
is,
excessive.
we pay between $2,000 and $4,000 a year for snow pushing in the snow dump.
Okay, yeah, just the rate says $100 per load. To me, that just, the math doesn't work.
Yeah,
Is there a way to look at that, like per event or charged by the hour, or another way to cost recover that as opposed to just a blanket number like that? Was there consideration given to that?
Well, it would be very challenging to do it without just a blanket number per event. So that $100 is per event, per dump, right? Just like it would be at the landfill. If they come and dump a truck of stuff at the landfill, it's not 5 trucks for one fee, it's 1 fee per truck. And this is very similar in that they might dump 2 truckloads a week for $100 each or whatever amount. And what we're doing is that $100 per truck is what we anticipate would be cost recovery based on the traffic that the director sees through the snow dump. So again, until we know exactly and start counting, we're not going to know exactly, but this is what we anticipate would be cost recovery, which is what we're trying to do for council is demonstrate cost recovery fees.
Okay, thank you.
does that answer your question, Councillor McDonald?
That question, yes.
The other question I have, Ms. White, which I don't think was answered, are we
Yeah.
trying to deter this from happening? Or,
No, we want them to use it. We just want them to use it. We just want to recognize that we pay to have snow moved in the snow dump, so we should be trying to cross recover it. The other question was related to the snowboard park and sliding hill. We haven't costed it out. We had looked at, we have a number of items like tubes and sleds and stuff that we had purchased that we wanted to use for parties. And then basically COVID happened. So we never did determine what the demand would be for that facility and how much we would charge for that. So I think our goal is to come up with something this winter to have a party package to determine, and then to determine what we would have to charge to cost recover on that. Essentially, the facility, the snowboard or the sliding hill is used by the community at no cost during regular hours. Like whenever they want, I guess is regular hours. We don't use the trailer for anything other than the snowboard club and storage of town supplies for the hill for when we have events there, like sliding parties and such.
Yeah, my question was, like, for the use by the snowboard club, what would be the rate that they would be paying for that facility? And what is the cost to operate that facility, heat and power for a year? Because I believe it's the same facility that's been there for the last several years since Arctic Winter Games. So I'm assuming that you would have some costs already on what that is for that unit. Thank you.
Ms. White,
No, we don't really, it's been wrapped up into another cost line, so I'd have to break it out a bit more. But ultimately it's minimal because it's not a lot of use, right? Like it's an in and out, and the lights aren't generally on, and the temperature is kept relatively low. Otherwise, that's the only cost that we're putting in that is not related to external funding. So when we're doing anything with the hill in particular, we generally have external funding for that.
Yeah, I'd still like to see the cost of that, the utility cost for that building.
Sure, absolutely, but that will take a bit of time to get to you, and
Yeah,
we'll
that's
get
fine.
that. And our intention is to have some sort of sense of how we would cost recover on that, because we have not had to do it in the past.
I raised the point because all other recreational user groups in the community are paying for their facilities, whether it's from minor ball all the way through to adult usage. And this is the only user group that has no charge for their facility at this time. So that's the reason for my question.
Mr. Chair, if I could, yeah, that is correct. They haven't been paying for the facility. One of the reasons they haven't been paying for the facility is because it's been so low cost, and because they maintain the hill. So most of the other user groups require maintenance by the town for their facilities. So whether it's minor ball, adult ball, hockey, curling, those are all things that are required for the town to maintain at a significant cost, whereas the trailer is very, very minimal compared to those other facilities, which is why they haven't been paying for user fee. And because the facility would be there anyways, because we do use it for town programming regularly throughout the winter.
I would argue that you could say the same thing about the rec center, the arena, any other town facility. So thank you. I appreciate your comments, but I still like to see the.
Ms. White,
Yeah, 10-4, I'll get Mr. Kidd to help me pull those numbers out for you.
okay. Councillor Prisoner,
Yes, just to get some clarifications so for the maintenance for the for the snowboard, like for the hill and some of the jumps and things like that, does the snowboard club actually take care of that themselves?
I'm assuming that you're speaking in relation to grooming and that kind of stuff with that piece of heavy equipment out there,
Yes.
Ms. White?
Yeah, so that, yes, the snowboard club pays for grooming. We do run an event in February usually that we get external funding for the grooming. So that's funding that comes from a sponsor, usually Mackenzie Recreation Association. So that's the only time we groom the hill, is with that external funding. So not from our O&M budget. The jumps and all of those things are maintained by the snowboard club. They're the ones putting the new features in. Any other parts of it? Yeah, that's other than continuing upgrades of the whole facility that are part of the proposed capital budget. The snowboard club runs the facility, much like the ski club or the golf course.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell, did you have a question?
Thank you. Hey, the snowboard club, are they the only users of that trailer there on top of the hill?
Ms. White?
No, we use it for events as well. So we store recreation equipment in it, like our sleds and our tubes. And we use it for warming up during sliding parties and for bathrooms during sliding parties.
Councillor Campbell?
So does the general public have use of it during the day? Like if they want to go sliding or anything, like the people of Fort Smith, do they have use of it to go to the washroom or to warm up when they don't have vehicles to be at the hill?
Ms. White?
Yes, that is our intention. We just are working on how we're going to schedule staff to make sure that it gets locked up at the end of the day. We won't be able to leave it open all the time, I don't think, because I think it becomes a risk for somebody habitating it. But that is our intention, is for it to be available as a warming shelter. And that's the intent of the application that we made to the ICIP funding in order to improve that facility, is to have a permanent warming shelter and bathrooms that are accessible to the public.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any further questions?
Kevin? Yeah. Yes, thank you. That's a good answer. I wanted to hear that. Okay, let's go back to the snow dump. For the fee increase, are we gonna get people just pushing the snow across the street into the ditches and we're gonna be picking it up eventually anyways? Or dumping it
So-
anywhere in town?
Ms. White?
Well, they already do that, push it into the ditches and make us pick it up anyways or pay for it. So I think we're going to be speaking specifically to the contractors this season about that. Because when they're being paid to remove snow, it is not to be removed into our ditches, because then we end up having to pay for them to remove the snow they were paid to remove already to our snow dump. So there's some discussions that need to be having there. And as well, it might be something that council wants to look at in regards to a snow removal bylaw. I know there are issues that other people have brought forward around people pushing snow into the street and leaving the snow in the street. So there might be room for having all of that as part of a snow removal bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Grow?
Can we move forward to the lottery licensing fees on here? Is that possible?
Are we finished with the last topic? Any further discussion on that one? Okay. Ms. White? You want to carry on to the licensing?
My question is around the raffle license fee change and the Chase the Ace lottery license fee changes. I know this bylaw about lottery licenses total is going to be reviewed. If we change the bylaw, can we go back to change fee schedules if we change other things?
Ms. White?
Yes, so we can change the rates and fees in the rates and fees bylaw during the year. We won't necessarily amend the bylaw this year, but in practice, because it is part of another bylaw that gets incorporated into this bylaw, those rates and fees can change more organically.
And so I'm just interested, I'm confused with the red lines here. Is this on the raffle licensing for number 2, is it going up to 0.4%?
I think, yeah, so that was an error. That's an error, and the 0.055% is an error. It's supposed to be 4.4 and 5.5%. Those are actually not going up. Those were just a clerical error.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussions?
Mayor Daniels has a question.
Oh, sorry, didn't see.
Yeah, just when it's coming to this whole gambling thing, I would like council to sit down and work with us and play with us a little more. Because I don't find it's that great. I think could be worked in a better situation where everyone wins. I just don't find it winning here.
Not winning at the
And
gambling.
I think we really need to work on this item and correct it. Because there's still places gonna be left out in this one. Thanks.
Councillor Curl, did you,
I'm in agreement with Mr. Daniels and, or Mayor Daniels, pardon me. And that's why I believe the lottery license bylaw has to be reviewed in total.
any further discussions?
Thank you. Thank you to the mayor and Councilor Kroll for that. Yeah, the lottery license is sort of an older bylaw. And I think that we have to see what the territorial government is up to in regards to their changes in legislation around lotteries. Because it impacts our bylaw, but it absolutely 100% needs to be updated.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. You finished with this section, Ms. White?
Sorry, I missed that.
Are you finished with this? We missed a couple of things.
So I think if there are other questions about the rates and fees, I'm happy to address those. Otherwise, I would love to see a recommendation for this bylaw to go to first, second, third reading.
Councillor McDonald.
I just have one question around for in the landfill where it has empty used 45-gallon drums and empty heating oil tanks. When you say empty, do you mean fresh aired or empty? Because it's two totally different things. So an empty tank could have residual fuel in it. A fresh aired tank has actually been cleaned prior to disposal. So I just want to be clear as to what you're asking for here.
Technically, it should be, I guess, with your term fresh aired, because we don't take petroleum products or oil products at the dump anymore. So those hazardous wastes are no longer allowed in our landfill. So it should be clean. To the
Yeah,
highest
so
level.
your language might want to reflect that then.
I think that's covered in the separate bylaw. So again, another bylaw that should be reviewed for the definitions as well.
Would that be the same bylaw that requires you to drain all your fluids from vehicles that you want to take to the dump?
Yeah.
Okay. But maybe that needs to be reviewed as well, just to make sure.
So many bylaws.
Any further questions?
I think before we vote on this, we better give us a couple days to talk with our people in Fort Smith about the changes in the prices and fees.
So, sorry, Mr. Chair, if that's the case, I guess I need direction. Is this, you're recommending this to go to council this cycle and taking time between now and council when you actually have to vote on the bylaw? Or you want to table it till next month?
I think we should table it.
I would be
don't
in
know.
agreement. I wouldn't be in agreement to table it to next month. Certainly. If people are not opposed to it, we can take a vote on that. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
I am as well.
We have 4, 5. Okay, okay, motion carried. I guess we should, someone want to make a motion? Councillor Campbell.
I'll make a motion that we table this bylaw 1030 consolidation rates and fees till February cycle. Thanks.
I second that.
And we have a vote. Carried. Any further questions on the bylaws as presented? Well, I do have a concern, but I'd rather not do it in a public forum, but I'll leave that until another time when we're discussing bylaws. So we can move on to the next. Administration, Salt River First Nation Development Agreement. Ms. White.
Thank you. I had provided you this development agreement in December for just your awareness as it would become a discussion item. The briefing note is there, kind of giving you background on the project and how the town has been involved, and the requested development agreement that Salt River has put forward, which has been reviewed by our legal counsel repeatedly for signing. Sorry, and I guess what I'm looking for is direction, perhaps a recommendation for the mayor and myself to go ahead and sign this development agreement with Salt River so they can continue with their development project.
Okay, I certainly don't. Councillor Kroll.
I would like to move that council approve the development agreement for signing by the mayor and the SAO.
Can I have a seconder on that? I'll second that.
So,
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, you can't second a motion.
Oh, right, that's sorry. Nobody wants to second?
You can't open it to discussion without it being a motion.
Councillor
second the motion.
Bissinger. Okay, can we open this for discussion? Because any
I'll second the
discussion?
motion.
You've got that, Councillor McDonald. Open for discussion, any concerns? Councillor Campbell.
Hello. Okay. On our briefing note here, the final plan was reviewed by ACOM again, and that's the same firm that's doing all the water and sewer work for the band and everything too. Why are we using the same firm to do our development agreement with them? I think we should have a separate, some separate engineering firm that does this stuff separately from ACOM, not one group, not one engineering firm doing the whole thing. Thanks.
Councillor Bissinger, you had your hand up.
Yes, so ACOM is looking after both interests of the Salt River First Nation and the town of Fort Smith, then representing both. That's my question.
Ms. White.
Yes, my understanding from taking over the project is that for in this case, because there was a need to have someone who was very familiar with our infrastructure. We were able to use a different department, different of this multinational company, very large multinational licensed and insured engineering company, to review the drawings for us.
Hmm. Well, it seemed to be Councillor Prissinger.
Yes, so are we saving money using the one firm for both parties?
Ms. White,
I don't believe that's the case. We're actually not paying for the review. All of our costs for the reviews and for our legal fees are covered by Salt River.
Councillor Campbell.
So ACOM is listening to what Salt River has to say then, as they are paying as they are footing the bill and they are paying their wages and everything. We should have somebody separate saying, yes, this is good for us, and let them pay the bill with somebody separate, not from ACOM that's all under one people. We need somebody separate, I think, overseeing this and checking this out. Thank you.
Ms. White,
I understand Councillor Campbell, and I think Councillor Prissinger is expressing those concerns as well. Just to be very clear, these are two different parts of AECOM, which is a multinational, multi-million-dollar organization. So this project is a relatively small project to them. They are licensed and registered engineers. I would be reluctant to suggest that they would be working unethically, because if that were the case, then they would be jeopardizing their entire multi-million-dollar company. But certainly, so I know that there's concern, but I think it is important to recognize that they have a legal responsibility to work within their scope of practice and ethically within their scope of practice. Otherwise, they would lose their livelihoods and potentially the company would be liable. This is not Salt River asking us to use this company. This was a decision that was made within the town administration at the time to use this company to do the review.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna go and make the assumption that ACOM has been a contractor for the town in previous projects and is familiar with our infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They are probably other than Musqueam, which is also on the Salt River project. Those are the two companies that are most familiar with our project.
Okay, well, I think my opinion would be at this point in the project at the 11th hour, I don't see, as Ms. White has indicated, they're a very reputable organization, and for the very small project that we're talking about here, I can't see them jeopardizing that point within their own organization to do something that would cross a line. And I'm not in any way suggesting that they would. I don't see any value in prolonging this beyond where we're at now. And I don't see any value in spending more money to review something that's already been reviewed by a reputable firm that's very familiar with our infrastructure. So I have no opposition to this moving forward at this time.
Councillor Campbell.
I'm not saying they're going to jeopardize themselves. I just have strong feeling that we got to have somebody that's representing us, not one company that They could be a multinational, they could be a small little piddly ass company from Yellowknife, but we need somebody that represents us, not AECOM that's representing the band and representing everybody here. We need somebody that looks after us. It don't matter if AECOM did the last 50 years around our town. An engineering firm could come in here and see in 20 minutes, see what we have going for our water and sewer in town here. We got to have somebody that's looking after the best interest of Fort Smith, our money that we're spending. I know we're not spending no money, but tying into our infrastructures, and we're going to be looking after this stuff for the next 100 years. We got to have somebody that said, yes, this is the best interest. And I'm not saying anybody from AECOM is crooked or anything, but I just want a separate somebody saying, yes, it's good to go.
Mayor Daniels.
I agree with Councillor McDonald. I don't think we should be changing things at the 11th hour here. Furthermore, this did not happen in our time. This happened in previous mayor and council's time. Nevertheless, we have to work with it. And I do hear your concerns all around the table that we have other situations like this. And now with this mayor and council, now we can start addressing them. But we can't address things from the past. And this agreement should probably go on if you guys are safe with it. Like,
Councillor McDonald.
I just want to add, we're approving a developmental permit here. We're not approving the final project, so there's work to be done. Our interest can be represented as we move forward from this point. So I don't think there's any harm in moving forward. We can talk about that process under this mayor and council, how we will ensure that we're properly represented, not by the same firm that is doing the work. And I think that can still be achieved as we move forward with this project into the future. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Personally, this council is the one that's signing the thing, and we are looking after it now. Our mayor and council, as of right now, is the one signing this thing. It's not the previous mayor and council that did anything. It's this council here that's doing it now. Don't blame it on the previous council. Let's go forward. Let's get somebody that looks after the best interest of us. We don't have to have this done today or tomorrow. We could have this done for the summertime. They're not coming back to the summertime to do the further work. We still got 4 or 5 months to get this done. It's not 11th hour right now to be done. We got time to do it. Thank you.
Mayor Daniels.
yes, we do not have 5 months to go. Right now, they got to approve this and get set up for it. Right now, they're out, sure, but they still have to approve this thing. I mean, we don't have 5 months to be kicking around. And that's why, that was one of the reasons why I wanted our budget done early, so that we get these contractors before other people get them tied up. It's something we have to deal with. And I'm not blaming previous council, but I mean, Mr. Campbell, you were there. Why didn't you do something that went back then?
Oh, yes, I was there. That bullshit. You wanted to attack me? Thanks.
Call order,
That's-
please.
That's a point of order.
Point of order, yep. Councillor Kroll.
I'm just looking at the briefing note from January 4th, where it says, during a special meeting of council, June 23rd, council approved a development permit for this project and authorized the mayor and SAO to sign the development agreement for phase 1 of the stage 1 of the Salt River Community Development Project attached. So this has already been approved. We are just hoping to sign it now, just to clarify.
No, so sorry, Mr. Chair, I'll let you call on me.
Ms. White, go ahead.
Thank you. So phase 1 was to start putting the infrastructure on town land. So drilling under McDougall and then laying the infrastructure along McDougall to the land or to the water and sewer. So this phase is going to be connecting to our infrastructure. So the only part that will be done on town property at that point will be to connect to the water treatment, to the sewage lagoon.
Thank you, Ms. White.
The work last year was primarily on reserve, and the work this year will be primarily on reserve, except for this part.
So the motion was put forth to go ahead with the signage here, if I heard correctly. We had a seconder. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, I made notes, but I kind of mixed them up here. We had B and C here. Miss White, can you remind me on that one?
You need
I
to,
just wanted to give a COVID update for C.
oh,
and
Oh,
then
just
that's
don't,
correct.
hold on, excuse me.
Yes.
You didn't ask for opposed or abstentions on the vote. Unless it was unanimous, but I did not see everybody's hand.
Okay, sorry about that. Anybody opposed? Counselor Campbell?
And is Moto G Power, Counselor Bolio? We haven't heard from Amy Better, who is the secretary, but there's Moto G7 Power, who is that Counselor Bolio?
What's that?
Are you a Motorola?
No, Samson.
Oh.
Who is that? Miss White?
I'm not sure. Sorry, I was totally not paying attention to that. I did not see it.
Moto G7 Power, who is that?
Could you please unmute yourself and identify yourself?
Leave him off.
You don't see it on your screen?
I wasn't paying attention. I do see it now. Okay, so I think
I was just assuming it was,
I saw it, yeah, maybe.
Bolio.
Okay, I'm going to, sorry, whoever that is as Moto G7, if you don't unmute and identify yourself, I will remove you from the,
Cynthia, it's
Yeah.
Amy.
Yeah.
Is that me?
are you on the phone?
I'm on the phone, yes.
Oh,
On
it
my
is you.
Apple. Oh, okay.
Okay, that must be you because it
she's
comes up as you and a different thing.
Oh, okay.
Let me
So I'm
just
on my
try and
phone.
let me try and move that one and see if it happens.
Okay.
Amy, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know who that was.
Oh, okay.
They're off now.
Okay.
Oh, I guess we shouldn't assume that it's fellow counselors. Well,
My apologies. I totally didn't notice that.
okay, so the next topic, I'll leave it to Miss White to give us a COVID-19 update. Miss White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this morning at 11 o'clock, there was a press conference from the Premier, the Chief Public Health Officer, the Minister of Health and Social Services and the Chief Medical Officer of the territory that basically brought in some changes to the current gatherings order that are a tiny bit confusing, but a tiny bit vague at the same time. So we sent that out to all of you. I hope you all saw that today. But essentially the changes that have been made because of the Omicron variant, which is now considered to be the predominant variant in the NWT. They've had a number of their tests from Edmonton come back being sequenced as Omicron. Over the weekend, there were an additional 200 positive tests from the last update, which was Friday, which was 160 positive tests in the territory. So over the weekend, it more than doubled. So the changes that we have been given in regards to the public health gathering orders are that households be limited to no more than 10 people indoors at one time with a maximum of 5 non-household members allowed. All high risk activities outlined in section F of the current public health order, which is the gatherings order, and listed below, will be suspended. Applications for variance under this public health order will not be considered at this time. So those high risk activities are dancing, singing, playing of wind and brass instruments, traditional hand games, contact sports, high intensity fitness classes, winter sports like curling, hockey, figure skating, speed skating, and brewball, and swimming, just swimming in general. So we have, so that those went into effect at 5 o'clock today. We have at this point closed both the swimming pool and the arena because we will not have, swimming is not allowed, and the arena, all of our arena sports are in the high risk category. So we have put out that all of those 2 facilities are closed. Contact sports, so most of our drop-in sports in the evening are contact sports. Soccer and basketball are fairly high contact sports. Squash is a fairly high contact sport. So those are on hold as well, those sports, as well as we put youth night on hold because the schools are closed because it's a risk for the youth to be gathering in their classrooms. We felt it was appropriate to put youth night on hold. With the schools closed this week, we did not get sufficient notice from anyone about that. So we were unable to run any full day programming for our school age children. Our daycare was running. It is now closed because we did have a exposure in the daycare. So all the staff and children must isolate for 8 days is what they've been notified by public health. So the daycare is now currently closed for at least 8 days. So it's interesting that the other item that was addressed was establishments like bars and lounges, which primarily serve alcohol, will have a maximum of 6 people to a table with no mingling of guests. So it's interesting that they've put a limit on household gatherings, but not any other indoor gatherings. So we're going to continue with the things that we can as they are. There was a bit of mixed messaging in the press conference because Dr. Candola indicated that all previous applications for variance or approved variances were null and void. But that includes all of our operating things, including our library. So we're not really sure that all of them are null and void or only as they apply to these 3 areas. But we're going to try and seek out some clarification over the next couple of days. But that's sort of the situation here with the town facilities moving forward. And this goes until midnight on January 21st. At this point, it may be shortened or extended depending on the situation. But they updated us that over 6,000 self-isolation plans were submitted for during the Christmas holidays. So there are a lot of people traveling back into the NWT, and most of the Omicron, most of the COVID cases currently are related to travel. So we can anticipate that it will continue to grow. And as Council Crowell mentioned before the start of the meeting, Cabin Radio has reported that we have 13 cases in Fort Smith. We had 8 at the end of last week. So obviously our case count locally is going up as well. And I don't know where to get a self-testing kit in Fort Smith other than the school. And they're running out.
Counselor Campbell.
Okay, this COVID here, what are we trying to do anything about that winter road from Fort Chip to Fort Smith? Any checks or anything? 'Cause it's a high traffic road. People are coming back and forth. We don't, and I don't know if they're all signing into COVID. I call them COVID police, but the COVID secretariat or whatever.
Ms. White.
That's a great question, Councilor Campbell. So the mayor and I met before the Christmas break with the Assistant Deputy Minister of the COVID Secretariat. And as has been reported by Cabin Radio, the GNWT has no intention of putting the check stop there, to reinstating the check stop at our border. They don't feel there's any value to it. Vaccination statuses are not checked at the border crossing, but your SIP number, your self-isolation plan number is taken. I know because I crossed the border yesterday. But they have no intention of putting one here. Interestingly enough, I had a report from a community member today who said that they called the 811 number to report at the rec center that they overheard a woman telling somebody that they had just come from Fort Chip and were heading into the rec center to go have a swim, and that they just arrived from Fort Chip. So that individual called the COVID Secretariat and provided the license plate number and was asked what they expected the COVID Secretariat to do for them. I'm just going to leave that.
Lots of money.
Do we currently have a COVID officer in Fort Smith? Yes or no?
We have 2 COVID officers in Fort Smith.
Okay. Counselor Campbell.
Is there anything we could, I know, like force the GNWT to do anything, or should we just inform Fort Liard we got a wide open road and they could go to see if they could open that road for them too then? It just, it seems so easy to come and not have to report in for your SIP number and everything. Just come across there and don't worry, come back and forth. It's like running around the gate and we let too many people in here. We're already at 13. We were at 8 yesterday. Now we're at 13. What is going to be tomorrow? 25, 30? It's a big concern. Oh, I love that road. Don't get me wrong. I'll go that way too. Thanks.
Ms. White.
Good, yeah, good points. Again, we did mention that the mayor spoke to them about the fact that other border crossings are still being monitored, but ours is not, and that our healthcare system is currently taxed in Fort Smith. I don't think that there's any extra resources here to deal with a COVID outbreak. Lab testing is taxed. Our public health staff are taxed. And there's not really a lot of leeway should we have an outbreak here in Fort Smith. And that when we spoke to them, there was already cases in Fort Chip of Omicron.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this topic? Moving on to item D, Ms. White. Oh, sorry, let's hold on. Counselor Crowell.
Is it worth revisiting this conversation now in light of the increase in cases and the new restrictions and regulations to the Chief Public Health Order since today's announcements?
In regards to the border?
Yes.
That's a good question. Ms. White?
I can certainly send an email to the Secretariat tomorrow asking if they're reconsidering our situation and reinforcing for them that the community is concerned and has been reaching out to staff at town hall as well as the mayor, and I'm sure some of you have heard this as well, that there's a lot of concern in the community around the open road.
It just doesn't make sense if they were so concerned about Liard, and I believe there's less people coming in through Liard than there would be from Fort Smith border here. And also I understand the confusion with all that is the kids next week will be allowed to go back to school and mingle and play recess, but they can't go to the rec center or to play hockey. So, and I understand it's different levels, but it just doesn't make any sense either.
Well, that very possibly could change by next week with the school too. We don't know. Anyways, Ms. White, you had your hand up?
That's what I was just gonna say. I don't think parents should hold their breath too much on that.
Yeah.
School next week, they might turn blue.
Yeah, I really don't know. Any further discussion on this matter? Kind of one of those situations where our hands are pretty well tied. Ms. White, would you like to continue on to item D?
Yes, thank you. So we would need a motion to go in camera for the reason that is identified on the agenda.
I have a motion from the floor to go on in camera for this particular topic.
I move that we move,
Go ahead.
go ahead. That we move in camera regarding section 23, bracket 3, bracket D, CTV Act, the salary benefits and performance record of an employee.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? We have a vote. All in favor? Ms. White?
I'm just gonna come and turn off your recording.
Yes, ma'am.